And so I would challenge you to modify your disproving of the soul to account for the idea of a material soul is in a different fourth spatial dimension from the rest of us. But that's where I believe the soul is. I don't know exactly how it works. Obviously, it's all speculation on my part.
Okay, so here we are in this last part, and you've issued a challenge for me to modify what I've got in the light of this idea that you've come up with, which I intend to do. And to do that, I'm going to go through some of the arguments that I made and see how they apply. I just want us to bear in mind what you said, which is that it's speculation on your part. This argument of yours is pure speculation. I'd like to revisit that right at the end, but let's keep that in our minds. So the first one was these what I called the phylogenetic problems. That there were things that, to a greater extent, evolutionary problems, although some of them dealt with the differences we would expect to see in the brains of chimps and other animals if they did not have a soul and ours did. We'd expect to see both phenotypical and genotypical differences, would we not? But presumably from what you're saying, therefore, all life has a soul. All life, the brain of all life forms has access to this fourth dimension. This isn't something that's just suddenly appeared. In fact, if it was something that just suddenly appeared in humans, that's causing your view here more problems, I think, than it's solving. But if it doesn't just appear, well, that causes you some problems, does it not? Because it means that everything has a soul, and it's not just the brains that are capable of interacting. Brains are made up of atoms and molecules. If those atoms and molecules can interact with this fourth dimension, then the atoms and molecules of my leg can interact with this fourth dimension. I'd be interested to know what you think to that. I'd also be interested to know, does God treat the souls of common chimps and bonobos, or, you know, you can go to more distant relatives of us, if you like, the cabbage, the brassica family. Does God treat the souls of the brassicas the same way? I'm assuming he doesn't, but what about common chimps and bonobos? If he didn't, then at what point since our lineage diverged, did God suddenly decide, yeah, this is the point in these tiny incremental steps from our common ancestor to modern humans? At which proto-human step did he say, yep, that's the point, now we're going to open the gates of heaven, now you can come in? I'd be interested in that. The second category I had was what I call the ontogenic problems. I don't really see that these developmental issues that I brought forward are relevant to this now. I'll grant you that one. That's a modification that I would make, given explicitly this extra dimensional idea of a soul that you've come up with. The dualistic issues then, this was the third, the problem of dualistic control. I don't think it's relevant in quite the same way as we detailed before, but we still have this problem of what I've written down here as selective detectability, an appeal to selective detectability, which I've mentioned several times over the course of this reply, haven't I? That problem still applies. I have a new question, and that's, from your perspective, what exactly does this new dimension actually add? I'm not really clear what it adds. I mean, surely the brain is just as materialistic, it's just as unable to ascend to heaven if it has 4 dimensions or 5 dimensions as if it has 3 dimensions. So what is God doing? Is he recreating a 4-dimensional facsimile of our brains? And you see, I have a problem if that's what he's doing. And the reason I have a problem if that's what he's doing is because I struggle to take ownership with a facsimile. I struggle to make this recreation of me as me. You know, if I said to you, right, Michael, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to kill you in a minute, but I'm going to reassemble from some other organic material the other side of the world, in Africa. I've got some other organic material in Africa, and I'm going to make an exact recreation of you, molecule for molecule, and then that exact recreation I'm going to shower with gifts, with attractive women, with millions of pounds, with fantastic cars, everything it could possibly desire, or the most wholesome spiritual experiences that it could ever experience. Okay, would you take ownership of that? Would you look forward or relish that? Or would you think, well, that's going to be fine for this other recreation of me, but what about me? You see, I have a problem with that kind of recreation of this kind of facsimile idea of a recreation. I think you need a continuum of existence for it to really feel as if it's you, for you to act well and not act badly on the basis that you're going to have to be held to account for what you've done, for example, for you not to feel as if it's another entity that's going to be held account for what you've done. This is something I've been discussing with just in a couple of comments with a Muslim called Saqib, who replies to some of my videos recently. So I'm interested what you think to that, or what else does God do? Just because there's this extra dimension, this is what I say when I say what does the extra dimension add? You still got the same problem that the soul is just a physical entity. You may as well say, well, yes, I just regard the soul the same as the mind. It's just an amorphous term to describe the workings of the brain. To me, that's all you've done. You've just added an extra dimension. Now, with my arguments, I've written down here my arguments regarding the role of the soul disappear. Well, of course, they do disappear because my arguments were we can already account for all these things, but perhaps, if what you're saying is true, all these different things already factor in this fourth dimension. Maybe when our brains are damaged in those three dimensions, well, they're going to appear damaged because you need all four dimensions for it to work, don't you? It's a materialistic brain. You're still saying it's a materialistic soul. Okay, so that wants to bring me to the main point I want to make. And that's the basic argument is still there. And the basic question is still there, which is, does Christianity collapse without an immaterial, or if you want to call it, an extra-dimensional soul? Where is your standpoint if this soul doesn't exist? Yes? I questioned an immaterial soul, you're adding an extra dimension. Let me say I can give you a killer argument that zaps maybe all the arguments I've given you you're not interested in, you're not particularly affected by, but let's say I give you a killer argument. And that killer argument thinks, yeah, that's done for my soul argument. Where does that leave you there? Where would you feel you still stood with your Christian faith if I could provide you with that argument? You see, because this is, you said that you said right at the beginning that really this is just an idea you've come up with. You've nothing to base this on. It's just speculation. But it seems to me that you're basing your entire worldview, your entire faith position, it relies upon what you've admitted yourself is just basically speculation. And why have you made this speculation? There's a certain circularity to it. Well, the reason you've made, I contend, the reason you've made this speculation in the first place is because without this speculation, if this speculation isn't true, your worldview collapses. You see, so the only reason for you to hold this idea, this fourth dimension, is that without it, you cannot justify this position of the soul, and without the position of the soul, you cannot justify your faith position in the idea of heaven, and the idea of salvation, and the idea of appearing before God and being with God. So it seems very, very tenuous, doesn't it? You've got no grounds for believing in this, other than if you don't believe in it, you're up shit creek without the proverbial paddle. Okay, well, I think I've said all I really need to say now. I've dragged on into 3 videos. It's been a long, long time since I've done that, but I felt the idea justified it because it was a very, very interesting idea, and it was an idea that I hadn't come across before. Thank you for your video, Michael. I'm desperately disappointed. We're coming to the Christmas period. My wife will not be at work for a few weeks. It's going to mean that I probably am going to struggle, if you respond to me with a video, to get back to you with another video, which is a very, very frustrating position to be in. Thank you for watching all 3 of these videos. I'm assuming you have done, Michael. I hope you found them as interesting as I found your video, and to everybody else, thank you for watching.